head in one straight alignment with your spine. Just calm down your mind and observe yourself. Observe your breath, air flowing in and leaving the body. Join your hands in front of your chest in Namaskar Mudra and try to repeat after me. Om Sehna Vavatu Sehno Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Inhale, slow and complete exhalation. Full out. Rub your palm. Gently place it on your eyes. Open your eyes in between your palm. Remove your hands and look on your palm. Relax. So we'll start the session. Just give me 1 minute. Alright. So before beginning, let's get go through of the last class just in a couple of minutes. So in the last class we introduced ourselves to yoga, right? What is yoga and how the definition of yoga changed with time, not exactly changed but according to requirement of people. Earlier the meaning of yoga was constantly being sticked on to union, joining from person to person, joining with your mind and the body, the connection between the soul and the spirit, the connection between the individual consciousness and the universal consciousness, right? Again, how, what, where, from where this word yoga come from, right? It came from the verbal meaning or the verbal root word yuj, which means union, right? This is the basic of yoga, the main meaning of yoga, or which also means kavalya. Yoga means kavalya, right? Kavalya, the connection, how the individual consciousness unites with the universal consciousness, and the different yoga practices that we have takes us through that journey so that we can finally reach that state of Cavalier, the enlightenment, where the individual consciousness meets or unites with universal consciousness. Knowing who I am, the removal of the ego, oneness with the supreme soul, right? The supreme consciousness. So that's yoga. And then in recent times, if we see, Our body is not very perfect. We have mental ailments, we have physical ailments, we have different issues, we have many emotional imbalancement going on in our body. So you using certain practices of yoga or using yoga as a yoga therapy, what happens, we can balance these tools in our body. When we say tools, we can balance our physical body, we can attain a state of psychological well-being, we can attain a state of social well-being, we can attain a state of spiritual well-being, which is the real definition of being healthy according to as accepted by who? World Health Organization. Well-being is not just the absence of what disease condition, it is rather the presence of a good physical body, a good psychological health, a good social health, and a good spiritual health. When you are healthy in all these four respects and you have a holistic development, only then we can say that we are healthy. So different yoga practices in the modern times, mostly the definition of yoga is this: how we use yoga to keep ourselves fit and fine and healthy, right? So this was a recap of what we learned very in a very descriptive way in the last class. So today, followed by that, we will learn the history of yoga, where the origin of yoga lies. Yoga is not something that dates back to 2 3 years ago or 500 years ago, or maybe just 200 years ago. No, yoga has its origin around 10 thousands of years ago. But earlier at that time, there was no rules of writing down. We have this pen and paper, we have this, writing down. Earlier we don't did not have this recorded classes. Did we have this recorded classes? Like, I think we go back to 10 years back, we don't have that much of evolution in um, studies or maybe academics. Earlier, there were only books. There were no guided sessions given by, learned people over YouTube. There were only one or two persons in the YouTube who used to run their YouTube channels. Now, there's, if we see nicely, actually, with time, it has evolved. We have evaluated so much that now students don't actually require a teacher. We do require a teacher for guidance, for showing us the right directions, but even for that, in the recent times, even from recorded sessions or YouTube channels, now we have moved on a step ahead. Now we are in the era where AI is there. If you ask them, guide me through this, he will give you an entire list of, Now then, the problem is where this knowledge is coming from. There has to be some rule where AI is getting its knowledge. So earlier, before comparing today's time with when you were in schools, you did not have recorded video sessions, you did not have YouTube channels, we only had, offline sessions, the traditional classroom environments, right? Even the techniques of teaching has changed. Earlier it was much teacher centric. With the new educational policies, it has changed. Now it's student centric. The class has to maintain that kind of environment where student is comfortable. Earlier it wasn't like that. We had to even ask for drinking water. Ma'am, may I please drink water? Which was actually, water is one of the main essentials to live, right? Even then we had to take permission. Ma'am, please, may I drink water? And that too not while seated. We have to stand up, you know. So it has changed. Similarly, earlier there was not even the rule of writing down the things in paper. They were more verbal. They were more oral. Everything you transfer it to your kids or maybe to your students orally, verbally, whatever they could remember. But then one point is that today the memory is much less. The memory in people are much less compared to the earlier times, right? This is because we are not taking that much efforts to remember. Earlier, we used to remember phone numbers of people. You please tell me your phone number. We remember, and then we ring it through our telephone. This was not the phone earlier. We have to remember those numbers or maybe write it down, and then that sheet of paper may get disappeared, vanished, or we may lose it. But we used to remember. Now there are people who have problem with remembering phone numbers because we don't have the habit. So earlier, comparative things I am saying, earlier they had that kind of, those people had that kind of memory where they can remember these things. But definitely, as we evolve over years, what happens, what is said orally either gets degraded or it uh add-ons. I said I am ill, I'm not feeling very good, let's not take the class today. This was my version. Now when you say this to someone else, I did not have a class, oh she was so sick, and then she said that she is having fever, she could not work the whole day, she was so tired and fatigued that she could not take the class. Okay. And then the third person, when it goes to the fourth person from that same thing, oh she was very tired, she could not sleep yesterday night, and then there was electricity fluctuation as well, and then next day she had something, she also had some kind of blotting, and then she could not take the class. The fifth person, she had blotting, she had fever, and she had fever because of excessive loose motions. She has change in her bowel habits, and then she got 102 degrees of fever, whereas I did not even mention the temperature of my body. I did not even mention about many things. I just said I am having fever, I don't feel like taking the class, let's not take the class. So this is how the oral conversations change over time, but that is where the change comes when we write it down. So the origin of yoga lies 10,000 years back, when the knowledge was more oral, more verbal in nature. The written knowledge was not there. But after 10,000 years ago, and then before that, around 5,000 years ago, it's the period of Veda or Upanishads. And before 5,000 years ago, what I said was 10,000 years ago, was a pre-Vedic period. There was concept of yoga, and how we know it if it's not written? It lies in the Aryan civilization, the Indus Valley civilization. There are epics, or you can say there are postures of yoga practice. The sculptures, or you can say what we say, the stone sculpting that we say, the imprints of certain practices on stones, already carved in stones. Yes. No, 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 it's not calligraphy. Already the postures are, sculpted in stones. Like fossils, what we say. Fossils degrade, right? The imprints that we have, similar kind of a thing. Alright. So earlier those were there. So for looking at those imprints on stones in the Indus Valley civilization, Aryan civilization, we know that okay, there were certain seals doing certain yoga postures. So if they are doing it, it's already imprinted on those stones. Looking at those pictures of imprinted pictures, we say that yoga might have you know existed even at that period of time. It's not something new. All right. And then when we come to the Vedic period, why we say Vedic period, the classification of history of yoga is somewhat like this: pre-Vedic period, Vedic period, pre-classical period, classical period, and now we have the modern period. So pre-classical period are all those Indus Valley civilization, Aryan civilization, where we get the imprints of yoga, postures imprinted on the stones, the sculptings on the stone. And then comes the Vedic period. From the word itself, we know what is Vedic period. The Vedas and the Upanishads. There are four Vedas: Rig Veda, Sham Veda, Yajur Athar Veda, and all these four have their own sub Vedas. Like one is very famous, we all speak about Ayurveda, right? Ayurveda is a sub Veda of Athar Veda. Yes, Athar Ved, its sub branches, or you can say a sub unit is this Ayurveda. So every week, if you go through, you have a lot of options to go through here and there, Google it, or maybe you have AI today. You can ask the sub Vedas, or I'll look into, if I have something, I will share next time. We will at least verbally also we can talk about it. So these Vedas, they are collection of songs, music, important rituals, the sacred hymns, and then also about the traditional medications. Why I say traditional medications, the treatments, Ayurveda. It's a subunit. Even Atharveda have certain things. Shamved is everything about music. Very beautiful Veda. Then Rig Veda, full of mantras. Every Veda has mantra. Every Veda have its mantras. Okay. And then the later part of Vedas, the end part of Vedas are Upanishads. The ending of the Vedas are the Upanishads, where we can find about yoga. It's not yoga there, it's yoga there. Okay, the joining of the souls, the union of the souls, the union of individual consciousness with the higher consciousness, the supreme consciousness, the dhyan, purity of mind, how we can control our mind, how we can regulate our mind. So these were the components of yoga which have been discussed in the Vedas or the Upanishads. All right. Now, why we don't get postures there then? Postures are important, but earlier the aim of yoga was not to, heal the physical body. It was mostly how to control your mind, how to regulate your mind, how to withdraw your senses from the external objects. These were the main goals of yoga at that time. Now, before moving on to the mental aspect, it's important that we look after our physical aspect. For example, if we take a developing country and a developed country, the problems in a developed country, they can look after even to the smallest of the factors. Who, you know, smaller things, this rule, that rule, this and that. But in a developing country we cannot look after those things because we have much more bigger issues here. People are starving here. The poverty line is even more. The percentage of people living under the poverty line is more. Now should we look after the poverty situation? Should we look after this general living standards of people, or should we bother about who is having AC and who is having a fan? That comes much later. In a developing country we should not bother about if someone is having a fan or not, because there are much bigger issues here. People are starving for water, people are starving for food, they are not getting a one time meal. Then in that situation we cannot think about luxury. But in a developed country we can look after what, even the smallest of the issues. Correct. So the similar comparison is there. Earlier people were healthy, they already had a very good toned body, they had a healthy set of mind. Only thing was how to control their mind, how to regulate it so that they can move on to this journey of eternity. How can they reach that enlightenment state? But now the situation is something else. We are already suffering from too many problems, physical problems, emotional problems. If we look after today's generation, they are emotionally so much already shattered. Earlier, we used to get beaten by our parents every day. You don't know it? Thus. Okay? You're crying, another slap. You're not listening, another slap. Or you don't want to eat, another slap, eat it now. It's not the same happening with the today's generation. You cannot deal with them like this because this is, you know, I don't know if it's an evaluation or degradation. Definitely, we should not beat our kids, but also look at the emotional state. We were much more emotionally stronger than today's generation. We did not know what was suicide at our age, at that age when we, at the tender age. Now, even a student of nursery, KG, maybe very at the tender age, they know what is suicide. The tendency to commit something like that, commit the wrong, to to convince the parents to listen what the kids want. So this is with time has changed. So now the problems are much more different. If we are not emotionally stable, if we are not physically stable, because see, the evidence is what, that we are not very in a very good state. Earlier, the definition of health was only the presence of good physical body, or the first definition was absence of disease condition is well-being. And then it changed over time, not just the absence of a disease but the presence of a good physical body. Then the organizers, or maybe the people who look after all those things, they got into mind, no, we need a psychological help as well. If we are not psychologically fit, we cannot take everything, we cannot you know deal with things. So then, with physical, psychological got added. And then with time, problems like depression, anxiety. What are these problems? Not just psychological or mental problems. These are also some social issues. They cannot deal with people. People become more antisocial, right? That is how these things came into the fit, that okay, along with physical and psychological, we need to be socially fit as well. Earlier, this was not a point of consideration at that time, Vedic period or pre-Vedic period. This was not an issue. So then came the spiritual health as well. Spirituality is not being religious. How many times you are praying to God, how many times you are offering to your, Lord. It's not that. Spirituality is more about that faith that you have. Spirituality is about the journey which takes you from this individual consciousness, uplifts you from this individual consciousness, and takes you towards that supreme consciousness. To understand not the surface of your life, to understand the deep meanings of your life. All right. So, it is also important to know these things. Only then you are spiritually healthy. So, everyone is taking, looking after to, give this kind of holistic development. That is how in the Vedas, or when you date back to classical period as well, pre-classical, classical period, you won't find asanas much. There are definitions of asanas, but there are less definitions of asanas. Alright, they also did asanas mostly to gain that kind of balanced state of mind rather than the body. Okay, then after the Vedas and the Upanishads, also Upanishad, there is another meaning of Upanishad, Upanishad, Upa plus Nishad, Up plus Nishad, UP, A plus NISHAD. There are two words, Upa plus Nishad together combines to Upanishad. So Upanishad means to sit. The disciple is meant to sit near his guru, not teacher, not a teacher. The disciple sitting near his guru to learn, to get that knowledge. What knowledge? What kind of a knowledge we're talking when we say this? Definitely the reality, the cavalier, the knowledge of cavalier. Okay, the knowledge of all these holy seminal texts that we have. Okay, so this is the another meaning of Upanishad, and in Upanishad, that is the end part of the Vedas, we find the definitions of or certain things about yoga, like connection of the mind, regulation of the mind, withdrawal of the sensory organs from the external objects. This was the Vedic period. Now comes the classical period. Okay, in the classical period, what we have is this Patanjali, the Maharishi Patanjali's yoga, Ashtang Yoga. We spoke about Ashtang Yoga in the last class, right? Ashtang, Ashtang, eight limbs of yoga. Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, Pratyahar, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi. So, see, as we are moving towards So, modernity now comes about purification of body. A little about at least the body, right? So, in Ashtang Yoga, there are two parts, Antarang Yoga and Bahirang Yoga. What is Antarang Yoga and Bahirang Yoga? From the word itself, we get the meaning. Bahirang, Bahir, the outer layer, the external body. Okay? And Antarang, the internal body. So, among those eight limbs, okay, among those eight limbs, the first four limbs are used to practice for the external purification or the external body or the external objectives, to fulfill the external objectives. What are those? Yama, Niyama, Asan, and Pranayam. Alright? Then the last three, Dharana, Dhyan, and Samadhi, are for Antarang, the purification or the regulation of your internal body. Then we left one in the middle, Pratyahar. What about that? It's not Antarang, it's not Bahirang. It is known as the bridge, which bridges the Antarang with the Bahirang. Why? From the meaning of Pratyahar, withdrawal of the sense organs. As you have purified, as you have regulated your external body, it's time to now regulate your internal body, your mind, your chitta, right? So at this point, it's very important that you extract your sense organs or sensory, inputs from all the external objects and rather settle it in your internal body. Okay, so it acts like a bridge. Four Bahirang Yoga, three Antarang Yoga, and one bridge. Together completes the eight limbs of yoga. This is Ashtang Yoga, Ashtang. Alright? So this was given by Maharshi Patanjali. So till now, until Vedic or Upanishad, this Vedic period, we had about yoga, but during the classical period only, Maharshi Patanjali, he for the first time gave a systematic format to practice yoga in the form of Ashtanga yoga. That is why this classical period is so well known, so appreciated. Because for the first time, we have a book of guidelines, gave a book of guidance, the guidelines to practice yoga. And that book of guideline is known as Patanjali Yoga Sutra. What does that sutra means? Sutra means the slokas, and those slokas are all one line, and it will give you everything deeper. Yes. So there are four. This one book has 196 sutras. This is another question you may get when you appear for exam. 196 sutras. All right. And then from this 196 sutras, they are divided into four padas, four chapters. First pad, Samadhi pad, Sadhan pad, Vibhuti pad, and Kaivalya pad. Okay, just briefing it out. This Samadhi pad. Okay, Samadhi pad tells you about the second step, what you should do and what you should not do. Okay, how you should do. But the sadhana, how you should practice, what you should follow. Okay, these are all mentioned in the second part. In the first part, we have started with what, like At Yoga Anushasanam. Atha, start this sloka. This is the first sloka of Patanjali Yoga Sutra. At Yoga Anushasanam. What does that mean? At, this at word. The meaning is hereby or therefore. The meaning of yoga is discipline. Atha, yoga, Anusasanam. Anusashan means discipline. And it starts like this. Therefore, the meaning of yoga is discipline. Or hereby, the meaning of yoga is discipline. Or yoga is discipline. So why he chose to start like this? Here it is the meaning of, or therefore it is the meaning of. There has to be something before that. That's why he is saying therefore. So that before part is what you will get in this sadhan path. Okay, so that is how he defines the entire yoga. Atha yoga anusashanam, yogaschitta vritti nirodha. Okay, so this is how he gave, and the first 12 slokas are very important. First 12 slokas, and I urge you to start remembering those slokas. In next 2 to 3 classes, I would like to at least ask you the memorized 12 slokas. Okay, I will then define, and also together maybe we can do that. What is the definition of each of the slokas? Okay, and if you are interested and if you feel interested, I will share you with one book which is very good. It has a very good easy meaning in easy way. Okay, which will help you, because Patanjali Yoga Sutra is a very interesting book. It's very interesting. One should know, being in yoga field. Then samadhi, then sadhan. Sadhan path gives you all the properties of yoga, what you should, how you should do the things. Okay, then comes the vibhuti pad. What is vibhuti pad? The ashwarya of yoga means the destinizing qualities of yoga, what you get from yoga, the fruits of sadhan. You did practice, right? So now you get the fruits of those practices, what you get out of it. And those fruits or those gifts are not the material gifts like a diamond chain, no. You get even more than that. So vibhuti, okay, the greatness of yoga, the fruits of yoga. Then the last, because even those are materialistic things, not exactly materialistic, but if you reach that state of vibhuti, mostly yogis think that okay, I have now achieved everything. No, that is actually the demarcation of degradation. If you start thinking that you have achieved it now, from here on you will start falling down. Whereas when you reach the stage of vibhuti, where you have earned something out of your sadhana or your practice, now it's time you should think this is my actually is starting. I am in the nursery class now, because that is where your actual journey starts towards cavalier, towards unity. Because the vibhutis are very big. I said now, it is like you gain the power of becoming the smallest, even the size of a sand particle. You can even become lesser than that. You gain that kind of quality. You can become gigantic with your power. You get the power of floating in water. You get all the gems. You get the power of disappearing. Okay, you get the power of get anything at any moment of time. I want this, I can create it right now for myself. I want to eat a pizza, you can create it here and now itself. I'm just giving a materialistic example. Okay, so now this is the point where yogis misunderstand that they have achieved everything, whereas this is actually the starting point. Okay, so now he has to keep practicing the sadhanas, abhyas and vairagya, which is very important for any yoga practitioner. Abhyas and vairagya. Abhyas is the dedication. You have to constantly keep practicing without breakage, without giving a full stop. You have to consistently keep practicing, dedicatedly, determinant, staying determinant for a long period of time. that is abhyas. And vairagya, you have to have these two qualities. Vairagya is non-attachment. I said, not being attached to the fruits of your action. You have not to think that I want this Ashwarya of disappearing when I want. You should not think in that way. Okay, so without having this kind, with these two qualities, first is abhyasa, constant, consistent practicing, dedication, and second is vairagya, non-attachment to the actions. Okay, when you continue, you first reach the state of vibhuti. Now when you reach vibhuti state, now you have to consider yourself to be the beginner of yoga. Then you finally reach the fourth pada, or what is mentioned in the fourth pad, Cavalier. Okay, Cavalier is enlightenment, the union of the individual consciousness with the supreme consciousness. And here in the Cavalier pad, other than sadhana, it also mentions some of the other pathways through which you can reach that state. Okay, it also mentions about herbs. In India, being from India, definitely you will know about this, Totka, Tantra. I do this and that, you will get this. You have this, not medicine exactly, they do something, not exactly black magic, but there are certain herbs through which you can reach that state. We should not say, but weed is also another kind of a herb where you have it and you reach some other, universe. You get the feeling of being in some other universe, that lightness where you have the total consciousness of, you can understand, you have a clarity in mind, you get free from every difficulties you are going through, that kind of getting rid of all the messiness and then understanding the reality. So there are certain, it mentions about certain herbs that okay, you can also go through that path to reach that state, other than doing all this, following this, all those steps, yum asana pranayam, you can take that step as well. So yeah, Patanjali has also mentioned certain certain other steps through which you can reach in the Cavalier Pad itself. Okay, so this is about Ashtang Yoga during the classical period. So if you ask Patanjali Yoga or Ashtang Yoga, okay, so when it was evolved, it comes from the classical period. Okay, classical period around, I think, 500 BC. Okay, confirm that. Let me check with it. Classical period is about yes, 500 BC. All right, 500 BC. So after that comes the post classical period. In the post classical period, we have this Hatha and Tantra, Hatha Yoga and the Tantra Yoga. We have about all this. Hatha, I have mentioned last class that it's about the union of the sun and the moon. No? The two opposite qualities that we have in the body. And when we talk about Hatha Yoga, it talks about the Kriya, the Shatkarm, the purification of the internal body, right? The purification of your nasal, pathway, the purification of your gastrointestinal tract, the purification of your, strengthening of your eyes, and you know, these are certain techniques mentioned in. We'll read about it deeply later on. So, Hatha Yoga also talks about dhyana. It talks about dharana. It talks about samadhi. All right, this is about Hatha Yoga. Then during that period only, the Hatha Yogic period, uh, who actually evolved this, or who gave birth to Hatha Yoga? These were the Nath Yogis, Natha Yogis, Nath, Natha. That is a title actually. It's a surname. Okay, huh. So the Nath Yogis, the first was the Machendranath. Machendranath. We have one asana name after him. Machendrasan. Have you heard about Machendrasan? Yes. That is Matsyasan. Fish pose is also Machendrasan. Fish pose is also Machendrasan only. Machendrasan is a twisting pose. We do. folding one leg, the other leg crossed over it, and then twisting back. That is also fish pose only. So that's Machendrasan, and Machendrasan is named after the yogi Machendra Nath. Machendra Nath was the first Nath yogi who gave birth to Hatha Yoga, followed by his disciple Gorakshanath. Another Hatha yogic text, Gorak Shamhita, Gorak Shasan. There is another asana, another after his name, Gorak Shasan. Okay, so there are a series of such Nath yogis who evolved or gave birth to this Hatha yogic techniques. They all had their own comfortable position in which they used to practice Hatha yoga, and so the asana was named after that particular Nath yogi. All right, then comes this modern period, the modern yogis, Vivekananda, you know, then Shivanand Saraswati and their disciples. Okay, so these yogis are from the modern period. Even if we talk about now, the recent time, then Ramdev, if we continue practicing, if we at least do something in this field, maybe we also. Okay, this is our time. So this has been the history of yoga, the origin 10,000 years back till now. And now you have to read about the modern yogis, the Krishnamacharya, all this. Yes, the modern yogis. You have a part of, a part where you have to read about at least six, seven modern yogis. What did they did? Who were their disciples? What was their specialization? What they gave to yoga, art of living, then divine life society, about all these things. Another thing I would like to mention is about Hatha yogis. There are certain very important Hatha yogic texts. Like for the classical period by Maharishi Patanjali, we have Patanjali Yoga Sutra. For this Hatha yoga also we have a certain number of texts. Okay, one is Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Okay, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. That is known as Chaturang Yoga. Hatha Yoga Pradipika is known as Chaturang Yoga. Chatur Ang. Only four pads are there, we can say, or four Angs were mentioned in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Swami Swatma Ram is the author of this Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Swami Swatma Ram. Hatha Yoga Pradipika, also known as Chaturang Yoga, because it only mentions about asana, pranayam, mudra, and nad anusandhan. Okay, it mentions about all these factors. Second book of Hatha Yoga is Gheran Samhita by Gheran Rishi or Gheran Muni. He is another Hatha yogi. His book is also known as Gheran Samhita, is also known as Saptang Yoga. There are seven or seven chapters, you can say. Not a chapter also, pad also, you can whatever you feel like. Seven such limbs mentioned in Gheran Samhita Saptang Yoga. Okay, let me drink some water. Then we have Gorak Samhita, another text of Hatha Yoga by Gorak Rishi. Gorak. Then we have Shiva Samhita. Alright. Other than that, we also have Hat Ratnavali. We have Shiva Samhita. We have this Sid Siddhanta Paddhati. What else? Let me check it. These are I haven't gone through anything. I am just sharing my knowledge. So these are certain very important texts you need to go through, at least know about. Okay, at least know about. Now this Hatha Yoga and Hatha Ratnavali are very similar. Gheran Samhita, and there is similarity between Gheran Samhita and I think Goraksh Samhita as well. Now, Hatha Yoga Pradipika, certain very important things to remember about Hatha Yoga Pradipika is there are only 15 asanas mentioned in Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Very important 15 asanas. Okay. In Gheran Samhita, there are 32 asanas mentioned. Then in Hatha Ratnavali, we have 84 asanas mentioned. So whenever you hear about, certain asanas like, what we can say, uh, any kind of asana which is not very simple, if the question comes in which of these texts we find this asana, then go for Hatha Ratnavali. You'll find it there because there are 84 asanas. In Hatha, yes, yes. Okay, now 15, these are very basic like Padmasan, Siddhasan, Gomukhasan, Mayurasan, then I think Baddhakonasan. Name is something different. It doesn't mention as Baddhakonasan. It rather comes as yeah. What was that other name of Baddhakonasan? I forgot. I will give you a list of it. Okay, and then Heran Samhita is 32. Now, when it comes to 32, it has a little more than this text. Okay, then in 84, you will find different types of Mayurasana. In Hatha Pradipika, you only have Mayurasan. In Hatha Ratnavali, you will have Pad Mayurasan. You will have, simple Mayurasan. You will talk about Pinch Mayurasan. You will get many of them. And together, in Gorak Samhita, I think it only mentions three asanas. I think I have to go back to, text to confirm it. So you have to read about this. This text also talks about Naris. Okay, about Naris, energy channels in the body. It talks about different text talks about different numbers of Naris. It talks about where it origins from, where it comes from, how it spreads in the body. It talks about those things. I think there is mention about Panchakosh as well. Annamay Kosh, Manamay Kosh, Pranamay Kosh, Vigyanmay Kosh, Anandamay Kosh. These are also mentioned in the Hatha Yoga texts. Okay, so this is the sense of Hatha Yoga. Just a brief out of Hatha Yoga. Okay, then comes the modern period where we are practicing yoga in very different way. If we go to different regions, if you go to America, US, you will see that they are practicing it in a total different way. If you go to the clinics, you will find people practicing yoga in a very different way. If you come to India, you go to Rishikesh, you will find some other kinds of people practicing yoga in a very different way. But overall, in the modern time, the main goal of yoga is to get a very good physical, mental, social, emotional, spiritual health. Overall, you get a holistic development, you get a good health. That is the main aim of yoga right now, in the present scenario, right? Uh, early, if we move back to earlier times, as we gradually go back to time, we find the real meaning of yoga is different. Even now, the real meaning of yoga should be union. Okay, let's not forget the root of yoga. But yes, uh, I said already that before reaching there, we have to reach to a state of the body and mind where we can understand, or at least our brains are ready or prepared, the preparedness to go into such deeper levels, right? If I talk about uh, something you don't know, and in the first class itself talk about that, will you understand it? No. I have to give a at least an introductory thing about that without saying what is brain. Without saying what is brain, if I start talking about the different parts of brain, will it work? If I start talking about the lobes of brain, I haven't mentioned what is brain. Without learning the ABCD, we cannot learn the, you know, uh, we cannot, we cannot form sentences, we cannot form words, we cannot read it. So similar things. Okay. So this was about history of yoga. Let's just touch what are the misconceptions in yoga. Okay, certain misconceptions of yoga, about yoga, that yoga, for to practice yoga you need to be flexible. No, it's not like that. To practice yoga, it's not at all necessary that you need to be flexible. No. Okay, you're practicing vrikshasana compared to someone practicing vrikshasana who is very new, and compared to someone practicing vrikshasana which has 15 years of experience, everyone doing the vrikshasana in their own way and getting the same benefit out of it. It's not about the flexibility, it's not about your, you know, definitely you need to reach a state of sthiram sukham asana. Sthiram sukham asanam, that is the definition of asana. Okay, sthiram sukham asanam. Sthir, stable. You need to attain that state in which, in whatever position you are taking, whatever posture you are getting into, you need to be very stable in it. Sukham, you should feel the bliss in that posture. You should not feel the pain. Oh my god, I'm holding this posture like this. Oh my god, give me relaxation. No. If you're sitting, you should be relaxed. Like when you are sleeping, you're totally relaxed. You can lie down in that posture for hours and hours, right? You are relaxed. You need to feel that kind of relaxation even when you're attending some posture. You're getting into some posture. Sthiram, Sukham, Asanam. Only then we say that's a yoga posture. And to attend that, you need abhyas, you need vairagya, and then one thing which is very important, learn to hold the posture. If you don't start to hold the posture, you never learn it. Okay? So, to practice yoga, you definitely not need to be very flexible. Definitely, your limbs should be working so that you can accelerate faster. But with modern time, with yoga therapy, even yoga treatment is given to Parkinson's disease patient. It is also given to people who cannot move on their own. There are therapists who do the sessions for them, like, you know, slowly moving their hands, slowly moving their toes and everything. All right, but in general, at least your limbs should be working. If even if you're not flexible, you can practice it. Second misconception is it's of the Hindu religion. No, yoga has no religion. Definitely, there are some hymns which, like Om mantra and these things. Again, then Om mantra is not talking about it's more spiritual kind of a thing. It's more of a vibration. It's more about the resonance. Okay, when we say atheist and ashtika and nashtika, you know, right? Theist and atheist. So when in general we talk about theist and atheist, what is the meaning of theist and atheist? People, huh, say, exactly. See, now we generally have the definition: one who believes the God and one who doesn't believe the God are the theist and atheist. No, the thing is, one who doesn't believe in the Vedic literatures or this kind of things are known as theist, and the others are known as atheist. It's not simply about the religion. No, it's about the moral grounds it talks about. It's about like the Vedas and Upanishad, it talks about inferences. It talks about what you should believe. Okay, the pramanas means there, we'll talk about it. Like there are six pramanas according to Vedas, how you believe in certain things. One is you directly have a look of it, pratyaksh. You have seen that thing, you have experienced that thing, and you are believing that thing. That is one kind of belief through which you can believe on something. Then you have inference. Inference means like inferencing something, because I can see the clouds and hence maybe there will be rain. Inferring something. You have seen a demarcation of water marks on your floor after you swept the floor. Someone has walked. This is inferring into something. You have certain base based on which you are believing that thing. Right? You went somewhere, you have seen that okay, the sand everywhere is very wetty, the roads are wet, maybe it has rained a while ago, and that's why everywhere it's watery, wet. You're inferring. Okay. There are other kinds of pramanas according to Vedas, like comparison. Okay. There are other kinds like verbal testimonies, believing on someone who is experienced in it. Okay, so there are certain other schools, or you can say like Buddhism, Jainism, Charvakas. They don't believe in this Vedic Brahmanas, so they are theist. So this is the real base of theist and atheist. It's not about the religion. So even we stay in that kind of darkness. Even I used to believe that atheist means believing in God. We simply see it as a God because this, Vedic hymns or these things are very pure. And when it comes to purity, mostly we, compare it with God, because that is the only entity we have known in our life which is pure. We just subtly, we unknowingly compare it. Even a kid who doesn't know what is God, he starts understanding God and do this when he. Okay, so that kind of learnings we are getting. Uh, it's not wrong, traditional, but it's not correct. Deeper meanings, which we. So it's yoga is not about religion. Every religion, anyone, regardless of his caste and creed and religion, can practice. It's secular. That's what is one of the misconception. Then another misconception is you need to be thin and lean to practice yoga, which is not. Okay. One more is you need mostly females practice yoga. Earlier it was one of the misconceptions. Now it has, disappeared with time. Now no one thinks in that way. So what can be another misconception? What are some of the other misconceptions of yoga? Can you think about? Yes, exactly. It's not just about asanas. It's not just about some postures. Now, when you have joined the class, you have known about at least a little about yoga. What is